What up, everybody? So I'm gonna try to take my time with this. I've done this video before. I believe I did a video like this almost 4 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm gonna say some of the same things, but it's all about updating your resume. Certainly, when things come there in fruition, and there's culturally things are different. Okay, so that's one of my things is why I wanted to do this video. So as you could tell by the title, in no capacity would I march alongside, support, use the slogan in a positive manner, or anything of that nature when it comes to the whole Black Lives Matter thing. And there's a couple of things that we got to unpackage to get to where we are and why that is the case. All right, so first and foremost, I want to make sure that I make the distinction between the organization and the movement. There is an actual Black Lives Matter organization. They have a website and everything, a little more centralized than what people give it credit for. I'm not talking about that. That is some goofy. Granted, they may be the first ones that use the term and such, but it's a goofy sort of group of folk that it ain't about really all of that other stuff. They try to mix in like defeating the patriarchy, defeating nuclear families, just sort of heteronormative. They don't like any of that. It's a weird movement, almost a weird organization. That's not who I'm talking about. And generally, most people that use the term Black Lives Matter have absolutely no idea that there is like a organization sort of attached to it. Generally, when people say the term Black Lives Matter, all these it's a very corporate movement. All the corporate movements that are now saying it, they don't know that organization exists. So what I'm specifically focusing on is this sort of ideology surrounding the actual movement that is, phrasing that is. On basically, look, let me start by saying this. It's not enough to identify a problem for me to align with you. I think it's foolish that people hold that standard where they throw the phrase out and it's like you should inevitably support it. You're Black. And they are griping about police misconduct, if you will, police brutality. And I'm like, okay, I've been doing that for I don't know how many years. That doesn't mean anything. I don't ally myself with you simply because even if you properly identify the problem, because that's not good enough. Certainly when you're going to be proposing solutions that aren't conducive to freedom, aren't conducive to what it actually is that I personally advocate, and doesn't work anything towards that. So I had to get that out the way because I know a lot of folks are going to they say Black Lives Matter, police brutality, you got to support it. No, I don't. And it's foolishness for you to pretend as if I do, because I don't have to do that. It's not good enough. And generally, most people would agree where just because you align with someone on a particular subject matter does not necessarily mean that it doesn't mean that you should ally yourself with them, walk hand in hand with them, march with them. So that's out the way. When we get to the ideology around Black Lives Matter, let's think about the phrasing, Black Lives Matter. Okay. The phrase pops up. A lot of people start to get irate, upset, amped, whatever term, certainly in response to a Black man getting the short end of the stick, getting killed, getting beat up, something like that by way of a white man, by way of a cop, something like that. So then I have to ask, Black Lives Matter to who? Who are you trying to convince? And I know a lot of people thought I was going to go the angle where it's, well, what about the Black lives that are lost due to black on black homicide or something like that? Or that's not even my point. Now, there may be something about that I'm going to mention here a little later, but that's not the core point. I'm not even taking that angle. My thing is, I'm not, and you watch my video when I talk about why I don't obsess over racism. I'm not one of those guys that gets caught up in how other races feel about me. Oddly enough, leftists, white, black, call me some sort of, in not all the time, but I don't get it all the time, but in some instances call me some sort of lesser than black derogatory term centered around my race. You know what they are. And it's so bizarre because that movement is centered around begging to be accepted, acknowledged, and included in white people affairs, and accepted and acknowledged by white people. Now let's get to the real. I know people don't want to admit that, but think about it. Black lives matter to who? If I value my life, right? Who am I trying to convince? Am I trying to convince the state? Am I trying to convince white people? Why would I care about that? And I was referring to the whole why I don't obsess over racism and talk about the Malcolm approach. And, you know, Malcolm, I put a bunch of quotes in that video. It was one of the better videos that I did. And I had a bunch of quotes, a bunch of, recordings of Malcolm talking about particular issues, some of his speeches. And some of what he talks is about this whole, being self-reliant. He's like these Negro leaders have such geniuses. They should be able to teach black people how to pool their wealth. If white immigrants can do that, they come over here with nickel and dime and then they create their own businesses and do all that. These Negro leaders should be able to convince them to do their own thing. So we don't got to worry about what they doing and how they feel about us and get them to accept us. That's the same damn thing that I'm talking about. Now, that's what I'm talking about. When people think they don't understand, people that usually rub Malcolm X shirts don't even know what he did. They think Malcolm X, and all they think is he was a more militant or willing to use fight back, right? So they look at him, he's just a more militant Martin Luther King. That couldn't be even no further from the truth. I'm talking post or pre-Mecca. They don't really know what Brother Malcolm was talking about. Nonetheless, as far as where I'm at, that ain't what I'm with. I'm not with begging to be acknowledged, accepted, or begging them to stop whooping up on. That's not what I'm about. And this is where I get to these actual solutions and why I differ so much from them and why I never align with them. Look at what's being talked about right now. Everything from reparations, from I believe it was a Kentucky governor talking about he wanted to give black people free health care or something like that. When it comes to this defund the police, it's not a defund the police actually thing anyway. They're not getting rid of the police. They want to maybe get rid of what exists now in the capacity that it exists, but replace it with a woke police. They don't want to stop. They don't want to abolish the gun laws. They're not even talking about abolishing taxation so people can keep the money that would have been paying for, let's say, the cops or anything like that. They just want to implement the woke police, and then in the event that you decide not to pay, they still gonna send them or the feds to stump a mud hole in you. You know what I'm saying? And they talk about rerouting funds to these programs, which is largely going to be inefficient anyway. That's all that is. So you think about all of those things combined, right? All of these different organizations. Hey, we want to now structure some policy to give black people voices. We want to now, all the corporate entities, we want to now highlight the black people that do. It's all about acknowledgement and inclusivity. I don't know why it was so difficult to say. And being accepted. That's for losers, dog. I ain't with that. And because they too stupid, they can't fathom a guy that's like, okay, yeah, I'm in opposition to all of these things. You were defending the police. A lot of these leftists were defending the police in the event that I said taxation was theft. First thing you bring up is the police and the roads. Now it's trendy. And that's all this stuff ever is hashtags anyway. It's a very corporate movement now. Very corporate. But I'm not begging to be accepted or acknowledged. I don't want that. At minimum, I want you the hell out of my way. And if that was what the bulk of the conversation was about, maybe I'd be on board. But that's not what it is. It's oh man, we're tired of this oppression, Mr. White Man. Please stop beating us, but also include us. What the fuck? No. That's what the movement is centered around. They don't want to admit that, but that's when you look at, just read the room. Look at what's going. Look at the corporate entities and what they're saying, what they're going to do to combat it. It's all about being help. We're going to help you. And this is why the movement is centered around two different people. That's part of that. Black folk, pity. I don't even want to call it self-loathing. That's not really what it is. But it's like this pitiful garbage, right? It's like, woe is me. I can't do nothing. I need help. Then you got the other side. White folk, self-loathing, guilty, wanting to position themselves as allies. So you got self-hating white folk and black folk that want some sort of pity for being black. That's the two large blocks of this movement. I don't support that. Why would I march alongside these just because they properly identified the problem? I've been talking about this problem long before it was trendy. And when it dies down, I'm going to still be talking about it. I'm not with, and again, going back, this is when I talk about those two blocks of leftists, which is all this movement is, a very leftist movement. Those two blocks of those guys sit here and can't differentiate from myself and Candace Owens. In the event I don't agree with them, it's, well, you are like Candace. Anybody that knows me knows I'm not economically like Candace. I'm not philosophically like Candace Owens or anything like that. I might not hate her to the degree that you guys, I don't worry about any of that. But all I'm saying is we couldn't be any, well, we could be further, I guess, but we're pretty far away in terms of where we're at. But it's more of a, you can't deviate from that particular narrative and be authentically black, because this is a leadership problem. This is why everybody, and I hate to go like full hotel, but this is why people that have nothing to do with it, your struggle, are able to latch onto your movement. They don't even, what POC, what the hell is that? They don't even want to call you black half the time. Other races who in some capacity probably hate you. You think other races can't be racist? Well, they think racism is exclusive to white people. Man, one of them Arabs probably just as likely to call you an N-word too. Don't get me started. But they was able to couple that with struggle. Oh, they latch out Latin in your movement. That happens every 4 years, 4 or 2 years when it comes to election cycle anyway. But they latch that stuff on your movement. Now they got the whole LGBT thing, and like, I ain't hating on all. I'm just saying they latched that onto your movement, and maybe that's because of the whole Black Lives Matter started as a sort of, that kind of thing. But this is why there's a leadership issue. How everybody gonna be able to hitch onto your wagon? A struggle. Come on, dog. It's a leadership issue. I'm not begging to be accepted by no white folk, bro. I don't want your civil rights laws. I don't want your pity. I don't want your reparations. I don't want you feeling you're guilty behind, feeling as if you have to include me. This whole movement is about white folk feeling as if black men and black women's world can't move unless they move it for them. Let's just keep it real. Let's keep it 100. That's what it is. It'd be one thing if they were like, you know what? Get the hell out of our way. State, get the hell out of our way. And that's where it stopped. But that's not where it stops. It's, okay, we don't like the way that you're doing this. We want to replace it with an entity that does a similar thing. And we also want you to help us out. So the egotistical and the self-loathing white people get to feel as if they doing something, helping your black ass. History of, and this is where the part where I know I'm going to lose a lot of people. I don't get caught up in disparities and stuff like that because I'm not stupid. And I recognize that human beings are human beings, and there's not going to be any given human affair in which there doesn't exist some sort of disparity somewhere. This whole idea, this is why I said I'm not at all interested in trying to even the odds of 25, let's get 25% white people killed, 25% black, 20. I'm not interested in all that. I don't care. It's a state, it's an institutional State is a territorial monopoly on use of force, violence, and ultimate decision making. Putting more black people in there does not resolve the issue. You still my enemy. Think it's black cops? You don't think it's black politicians, black city councils, that's facilitated some of the stuff that we have today? Just because you're putting people that got the same damn skin tone as me don't mean that you've resolved anything. Don't mean that you can't be my enemy. This is why a lot of these guys are anti-capitalist, anti-private property, which is why they get to excuse looting and stuff like that. Why the hell would I align myself with those types of guys? They, from a principled standpoint, they don't understand it. Why would I align myself with those types? But yeah, they're begging to be accepted by white folk, included in the white folks' affairs. I'm not at all concerned with the disparity. I'm concerned with what's wrong and what's right. That's what I'm concerned with. When you talk about the aggression, I'm talking about violating people's private property rights, be it in self-ownership, so physically, be it in their private property, destroying, taking it, confiscation, all of that. I don't support any of that. And I'm not going to march alongside you. But the disparity thing is interesting because it assumes that, and this is why I'm not willing to let y'all make it. And again, I'm not going down the rabbit hole of what about black on black. I'm not talking about that. What I'm saying is there's a cultural problem among black folk in some of their communities. And when I say communities, I don't necessarily just mean a black community. There's not a whole, I won't say there's not a whole lot of them. There's some, but people that feel as if they're part of black communities aren't literally living in communities that are exclusively or even mostly black. So when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about culture. There's a cultural problem that they act like they don't want to address. It pains them to address it. And the reason why is because they get to rid themselves of any sort of responsibility for their own situations. This is why I don't get caught up in disparity. People look at disparity. This amount of people have, this happens to this amount of people. That happens to this amount of people. And they act like it's every individual is equal. And therefore, the disparity is something's wrong there. And the disparity itself points to it. They don't talk about what's going on culturally. They don't talk about how these people are acting, within their own communities. Are they doing things that are diametrically opposed to their own personal advancement? We can talk about, and the reason why, that would force them to have to drop some of the other stuff that they are even advocating right now, welfare statism. I want to talk about the black, be it men in the household, whose fault that is. It's not even important for this video. It's the woman's fault. It's the man's fault. Can't keep his thing out of chicks. She can't keep her legs closed. Whoever problem it is, right? And that's what's so bizarre to me. Like, I'm in a union with one woman, right? I don't have no kids yet. I don't have no baby mamas. My baby mama is gonna be the wife. Okay, that's it. That's where it stops. Like, that's what I do, right? I just turned 30, and that's where I'm at with it. And you think, woman's black as hell. And I'm gonna end with this. And I talked about sort of that issue. And we talk about babies being born out of wedlock and those sorts of issues. We know even their own data that they refer to points out the fact that when the kid has a father, when the kid has both parents, they are most likely. That's one thing that you could do to stop the cycle of intergenerational poverty. It's one thing that generally has a direct link to positivity. It's not exclusive. It's not foolproof, but it has almost a direct link to sort of positive outcome on that child when it comes to both of the parents being in a household and stuff like that. I know there's some people gonna be like, "What about the drug war?" Which is a rotten thing. I've already wrote on that. I wrote about the racism regarding the drug laws and stuff like that. But not all of us are on drugs, bro. I know you like to pretend that way, but not every single person or that's like father that's not, let's say, in their kid's life. And again, it could go on the other side as well. But it's not just because they're in prison or something like that. I think it's actually insulting for them to assume that. Well, they're not in there because of the drug war. Like, damn, you think we all slanging? Like, is that how you really feel about us? But a point that I want to make, I'm from Oak Cliff. I'm from Dallas, Texas. People know me as YG Ripper, you know what I mean? And I grew up banging, right? That's not a secret. I talk about this many times, right? I've got a lot of homies that's been killed. I've been shot at, slid, jade. I've been through all of that. You know what I mean? I grew up in the same unfortunate situations that a lot of these folks in. Actually, I had it almost worse off because when I was first born, my mother didn't have me. My mother and my father were married, right? So I was in an unfortunate situation where we were decent when I was born. But when they split, you know, my father was not a good man. But when they split, obviously my life changed significantly. You know what I mean? And I grew up in a single parent household, not having a lot. Mother had to work 2-3 jobs at a time to ensure that I had the things that I needed and even some of the things that I wanted. And one thing that I loved about my mother is my mother never raised me to hate black folk, never raised me to hate on men, never raised me to, because she was raised, by, that was an important thing, right? Black men being in their households and so forth. And she never had me grow up wanting to sort of create a similar scenario. She always emphasized the importance. Even though she raised me as a single mother, she knew that was not preferable. She knew that was not preferable. Granted, God forbid I say something like that and then single mothers jump down my throat because they might have made a mistake or two. I feel like part of being great and part of a forward advancement is even being in an unfortunate situation, acknowledging that's not the preference. Like I say with banging, right? I don't excuse that still. I did it. I don't excuse that. I think there are people that are terrorizing their own communities and stuff like that. They're bad people. Let's call them what they are. You know what I'm saying? They're bad people. And I was a bad person when I did it. Funny thing is, though, and this is the point that I wanted to make. I know I'm ranting and raving, right? The point I wanted to make was that when I was doing that, never once did I get accused of being, using Uncle Tom's or not full black person. It's always these light skinned cat, literally half white people, talking about trying to lecture me about being whitewashed and all kinds of stupid stuff. Fool, you literally are whitewashed. Shut the hell up talking to me. Anyway. It's not, like the kind of Kaepernick thing, right? You used to wear, had straight hair. Now all of a sudden you're wearing frozen. Y'all know what I'm talking about. It's all these light-skinned cats, man. It's like they overcompensate. They just as much white as they are black. It's funny that they choose to be the black side. Nonetheless, when I was banging, getting in all these fights and stuff like that, doing things that was, had me on the path to being dead or in jail, just like a lot of folk that I grew up with. Never once was I accused of being black or not being black or being whitewashed, Uncle Tom. I never was accused of that. Never once was I accused. It wasn't until I dropped from what I was as a leftist, from a political side of things, stopped begging for acceptance and all of that sort of loser stuff. That's when they said that. So what does that say? What does that say? Because I choose not to line myself with them. What does that say? I could go beat up, kill all that other black people, terrorize, steal from other black people. And they feel like that's what it is to be black. That in itself shows you that there's a cultural problem that they don't want to address because that requires responsibility. And when I say they don't want to address it, I'm not saying that there aren't people that are addressing it, that aren't addressing it. What I'm saying is when they look at all of these different things, they treat people like there's nothing that they can do to better their own situations. It's, I'm the victim. No matter the experience of black immigrants, which is generally a completely different thing, they act as if everything is not their fault. They're in their situation. And I'm not saying there aren't people that are actually victims of things. But to sit here, and I'm not willing to do that, sit here and pretend like all black people are innocent, just getting the short end of the stick due to oppression or the history or the legacy of slavery? Like, come on, dog. No, a lot of y'all in the positions and you got exactly what you deserve, and it's what you doing. It's what folks within your community are doing. But that, again, requires responsibility. It requires agency. And that's what they don't want to do. Going around sobbing, acting like walking alongside these old little scrawny white leftists who's sitting there apologizing to you for some stuff they ain't even had no control over. Both of y'all, actually. You sobbing because you black, and they sitting here acting like I'm sorry for my race. Like both of y'all was born and raised in suburbs. Like, come on, man. And we can't talk, or they get mad when you bring it up. Like, no, I know a lot of y'all are fronting. Come on, man. You got all these fools that live in the house on the hill, and you expect me to act like they got some old pent up. Nah, this is all a show. But mainly, I'm not begging no white folk to accept me. That's for losers, man. That's actually admitting that they're superior to you. I'm going to talk about this white supremacy. What other thing is that you sit up and expect, help us. Help us. Y'all need to do something for us. Lift our voices. Do something for us. If you actually feel as if you are of value and you matter and you are great, that ain't even no stuff that you even worried about. When I look at state brutality, I look at that like what it is. That don't make it no better if they swap the race of the guy that's whooping up. That don't make it no better. We replace it with the woke police. That don't make it no better. And this is why I would more so support things like Black Guns Matter and Maj Toure, because he's at least applying a solution that I feel is conducive to working towards a freer society, getting black people armed and trained on how to be armed. That's a movement that I'm all about. But that's the funny thing, is that the same guys that are preaching that stuff generally are the same people that want more gun control. They scared of ARs. They want more bans and want it more difficult for them to get gun registries and stuff like that, which allows people to be more self-reliant. This is why, my ears perk up. You talk about defunding the police. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, we talking about some, privatization, right? This is what we talk about. We're talking about some privatization. We're talking about some marketized forms of community security and stuff like that. Is that what we're talking about? And then we're talking about, allowing those to form and, having competing firms and stuff like that so people can decide what's the best for them in their communities. Obviously holding them the most accountable. Is that what we're talking about? Of course not. You look into it, it's just replace the police with another police that just do what they want them to do. Are they talking about abolishing the laws, duty to retreat laws, the gun laws that allow people to protect themselves more effectively with deadly force if they need to, themselves and their property? Absolutely not. Of course they're not. That's not what they're talking about. That's not even part of their plan, yo. What's part of their plan is rerouting funds. They're not talking about, okay, people are being taxed. What if I don't want to give you your stupid state function or state organized program? What if I don't want to give? Oh, they're just gonna send the woke police or the feds to come stomp a mud hole in you. Oh, so here we are back to square one. I'm not allying myself with these types. They have wanted me dead, disarmed, and so forth. Some of these same groups. Why would I march just because you identify? Yeah, I don't like black folk being suffocated or black folks having needs to that. I don't like that. Of course I don't. This is why I maybe wrote an 18-song album and I toured the country internationally as well, talking about this. It's amazing, huh? That I dropped a song where that's what the literal lyric is: abolish all the government, statism. I do a song called Self-Ownership, our most popular song, and the bridge, what am I talking about? For example, when a cop's shooting a black man, you focus on the racism, ignoring all the statism. holding signs riding is not about to save them because you must have forgot that that's the power that you gave them. Criminal justice reform is a euphemism for a bunch of dumb, foolish slaves with Stockholm syndrome, thinking they'll be held to the same standard, don't do it what, so they can investigate themselves and find no wrongdoing. Bro, sit and think about this foolishness. You hit the ballot box supporting fools that don't know you exist. Warfare, healthcare, and your minimum wage. Call it progressive, man, but you an obedient slave. Like, I had been there and done that. I got a song called Demon Rat on there. We got a song called Demon Rat. I'm talking about white leftists and them being evil. I've been there and done that. You can't lecture me, telling me something like, whoa, if you talk about this or you're not with us, then you must be. No. You don't get to do that because 365 days throughout, I'm talking about it and I'm against the state. And then I'm having to defend my positions against you. Oh, we don't, nobody needs an AR-15. What the fuck? How you gonna tell someone that? And then on the same hand, talk about getting whooped up on. Like, come on, dog. That don't even make no damn sense. It's because it's a movement that is centered around, maybe even properly in some cases, identifying the problem. But as far as their solutions, we're on completely opposite ends. And they actually, when you say Black Lives Matter, you're trying to convince them that your life matters. When I saw that video, it's disgusting. Saw this video, it's like these bunch of, most of them were white. Standing armed doing one of these like marches and stuff outside the neighborhood with all their guns and stuff. And you got this black dude with a sign, little young cat, talking about my life matters, holding it, and he's looking at him. Like, that in itself tells me exactly what you about. You begging to be accepted by them. You trying to get them to acknowledge your existence. You trying to get them, basically this is what it is. And I'm gonna end it like this. This is exactly what Black Lives Matter is. They want white folk to treat them like they feel white folk treat other white folk. That's for losers.